This was updated 5 hours ago. So give us a
Oh
bit
yeah,
more review of that.
this is a developing situation. The FTXs would try to have you believe that it's over. They would try to have you believe that it's all over and everybody's fine. But the reality of this is, I think, quite different. I think that it's not over. I think that they are being exposed for a lot of the stuff that they did. That founder Sam Bankman-Fried. I mean, he was kind of a guy that you look at it, you want to see this guy win. That was kind of the look that he had given to the world. People put him out there as like the Mark Zuckerberg of crypto. He was, I think, the youngest billionaire last year or something like that. And
32 billion, it said. That was
yep, last
valuation at the
year,
start of the year. It was valued at 32 billion.
two days ago it was 16 billion. Now it's all wiped out. It's all gone. Apparently, allegedly. Um, so it's one of those things where this guy, regardless of what people say about the practices of the company and all this stuff, and I know that it's corruption at its finest. Actually, let's just break it down as an example of corruption. People in the United States they have this belief that if somebody's saying the government here is corrupt, that, oh, they can't be. That's other countries. That's other countries that are corrupt, and they do that. That's Saudi Arabia. That's China and Russia. There's no way we could be corrupt. That's tinfoil hat. Well, this is a prime example of corruption to the very top. Sam Bankman-Fried was one of the top donors to the Democratic Party, and both this last midterm election and the presidential election of 2020. He was a top donor right after Michael Bloomberg for Joseph R. Biden's election to president. And then over the past 2 years, he has been a welcome face in Congress, where the SEC has gone after, other examples and other things that they call, whatever they want to call and slap whatever label they want to slap on it. They'll go after that stuff. But it's interesting if you look at, Gary Gensler, who is at once an MIT professor. He was once an MIT professor, and Sam Bankman-Fried, who was once an MIT student. And the fact that Mr. Gensler seemed to have the time to take meetings with this guy. Why was he doing these meetings with this guy when, I don't get it. Why is he protecting us from Ripple or protecting us from all this other stuff when this is an example? If I had to teach an MIT class on government corruption, I would point exactly to these two gentlemen and what they did, and that's illegal by the book. What they did, what Gary Gensler chose to do by taking those meetings with Sam Bankman-Fried, that is illegal and that is corruption and it's wrong. And the fact that they just let that happen, I'm not saying that I welcome any of this regulation. They're going to use this as the scapegoat. I guarantee it. But, and they've said the CFTC and the SEC have both said FTX is in their lens now, that it's in their crosshairs. But I will almost guarantee you, because of the runaway corruption, it happens with the Republicans too. I don't agree with either side. It happens in any form of government. Because of the runaway corruption, just like Do Kwon with Terra Luna earlier in the year, nothing will happen to this guy. Absolutely nothing will happen to him. Even if the whole exchange implodes, his fortune is gone. He might walk away with a cool $1 billion and not a single, nothing that really affects him. So it's interesting to pick it apart. And when you look at that and take all of that and put it to the side because it's opinions, you look at what it's done to the price. We've never retraced a previous all-time high. We went to 15.9K Bitcoin yesterday, and it's back up to 17 now. But the big gaping hole and the big gaping question here is, if you're Tom Brady and Stephen Curry, you're probably wondering the same thing. Where the hell is my money? You're probably waking up today like, well, okay, the price is back up again or whatever. But if you were a customer of FTX like these gentlemen, you're probably wondering, okay, where is my money? And it's
Let's
a
bring in
big,
Tom
big,
Brady right now.
yeah, it's a big question from many people today. Apparently, Sam
Basically, needs to win
Bankman-Fried is
football.
among one of those people, but a lot of people are wondering, customers of FTX, where the hell is my money? And they're saying that, oh, FTX International was the one having these problems. FTX US, we were fully compliant and they have all the reserves to back everything dollar for dollar. Sam has since deleted some of the tweets claiming that everything was backed dollar for dollar, one to one. And it's very, very interesting just to see this unfold. And it's interesting also to see the role that CZ of Binance played in this, because what ignited all of this was the fact that CZ held a very substantial portion of the FTT token. And he said one day, he's like, well, I've just decided to sell. And he started selling. And he sold. It decimated the price. It's not quite all the way to being a Luna, where it's gone to complete absolute zero. I think it currently sits at like $3 or something, down from like $25. And it's one of those things where at the end of the day, FTX, it would be to actually do anything here. You have to look at the situation, because this is a great example. And if I was teaching a course on this, if I was teaching a course on just straight pure government corruption and what it is, I would say, if you look at this situation, and if I gave a multiple choice and I'm like, well, what would a non-corrupt government do, a non-corrupt administration do? And you gave the students the choice. Well, they would go and they would arrest everybody. You would have the regulators get arrested along with their co-conspirators at FTX. And then also, in some cases, politicians. Everybody would go and you'd get new politicians, new regulators, and then everybody would be vindicated from that. The people would be vindicated, right? Option number two is that, okay, the regulator just turns on this guy, their donor, their previous donor that they happily took money from. And, maybe this guy has some dirt on them and he spews it off or whatever, but they shut him up and they find a way to put the guy in jail, and the regulators and the corrupt politicians sit there and, they say, bad, look at this example. And then C, which is the most corrupt, B is a middle corruption. C is the most corrupt. And this, I'm going to tell you, I like it that it's C, because this is most likely to happen in this particular circumstance. Nothing happens to anybody. FTX kind of fades away into the shadows. Sam Bankman-Fried rides off into the sunset with $1 billion. That's probably what happens. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that, like, if I was to teach a course and I was pointing to what corruption is, that's what it is. And that's probably what's going to happen here.
Yeah. So exactly. So it's like, where's Binance's position in it when they were one of essentially the biggest holder of FTX?
Yep. And then it comes into the argument where FTX kind of lightly alleges, they're like, well, Binance does the same thing. Binance just prints money with their stable coin, with BNB. And they're probably, yes, and the reason that they can do that and get away from it, get away with it, is China. They're backed by China, and China is corrupt.
By China. So it's like, yeah. So then again, you think of China having such a huge control on the crypto market, even though they come out and say, we're not able to mine Bitcoin in China. And last week I was speaking about the new digital yen, and we were looking at of all these other international digital currencies, digital dollar, digital euro. They're all got the white papers out. They're reporting that the digital yen has been involved in 22 million of transactions already, and nearly all other countries' digital currencies are essentially running 5 years behind the digital yen. So if you're thinking about it from that perspective, people, it's like they're already the leader in the space in crypto and digital, bar none. Forget about everyone else is talking here. And then B, they've got Binance, which is essentially the biggest, crypto exchange in the world, run from China. They're leading the way with their digital currencies. And we've got FTX, which was essentially set up here in America, but it's got international jurisdiction in the second arm, collapsing, and they're needing to get propped up
Actually, no, the interesting thing, you'd be surprised. The interesting thing is they're actually not. They were originally set up in Hong Kong. FTX was in Alameda Research. Sam went to Hong Kong, got his residency in Hong Kong. He left the US. And
so
then
how's the US part of it then coming in then? So how the
because
it comes to saying, got it. We're behind the curve. The US is behind the curve and what's going on here. And
they moved it to the Bahamas. They moved their operations from Hong Kong to Bahamas. And then within the Bahamas crypto structure, they created two products, FTX International and FTX US. And their claim is that only FTX International is insolvent and FTX US is fine because they followed all the rules.
Yeah. So that's what we need to get these token exchanges blasting people. The government needs to basically encourage investment into blockchain in the same way they're doing. And in India right now, the amount of kids they're putting into blockchain and education is unbelievable. Millions and millions and millions of them are doing blockchain degrees. When here it's just like people, that's never going to take off. It's not backed against anything. It's like you just look what's happening in the world of finance globally. And the US is just like dropping further and further behind, which is like worryingly a position whereby they should be taking the lead on this right now. And as a case, we need to move forward with this. And, we spoke about tokens. I was looking at some of the older podcasts we did with Ron. We were speaking about this as well. But ultimately, what you're saying, Garrett, is the whole world's moving into this digital currencies. The whole world, China, we're talking about China doing so much stuff. And the US, because of where we are in the market space, is we're not going to, it's like we're missing out on this adoption. And all you're doing is you're giving away more and more and more.
Yes and no. And here's where I would say no is
there's a good point.
If you distill it to the very fundamentals, the US government has complete control still over Bitcoin, over anything.
Yeah, it's got the
because you look at what happened with the case of if you look up the James Zong seizure of $3.3 billion worth of Bitcoin, which actually happened a year ago. They just released it now, though, the news about it now. Bitcoin's completely traceable. They found, the $3 billion in a little circuit board in a popcorn tin in this guy's closet in Georgia. The U.S. government, they created SHA-256 encryption, after 9/11. They weren't in the business of creating privacy tech after 9/11. They have a backdoor. They have full control. It's, they just have full control. And then the number two thing is that all the stable coins are denominated in the US dollar. Every single stable coin is denominated in the US dollar. So we have a different kind of control over the ecosystem that stems from
but they're losing control though. It's like by being slow to adopt, you're still going to be in control because it was the premier currency, Garrett, but if you're thinking the world supply of dollars, and it was like 2010, 71% of essentially the reserve currency across the world was US dollar. Now it's down at 59%. So it's small. It's the control is still going to be control, but it's like losing. And then again, I'm always on about security tokens and what securitizing these guys are doing out in the market space, but people have to look at that realistically and like put more investment into this thing and more investment into blockchain and digitization in the US to keep up with what China and other countries are doing, because ultimately there'll still always be a place but you don't want to fall further and further behind. And I think that's what's happening out there, because we're too afraid. Oh, well, I'm afraid the government's going to be tracking what I'm doing. Government's tracking what you're doing anyway. Garrett's just advised you a backdoor in it. Just because you're putting in a secret chat in WhatsApp, are you going to trust Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah,
he's selling that stuff, mate.
That's the thing that a lot of crypto guys and a lot of people, just computer people, make the mistake of thinking. They're like, they think the government is in somehow, some way, not the hand that feeds here. That they made a technology that's not going to serve their interest, and that's a completely false notion of security. Every piece of technology you use, has these back doors built in.
Yeah, if you use this thing called the finger and press a button, they know.